Hello everybody, welcome to a brand new Let's Play series in Hearthstone for Kaiserreich. Today we're going to be playing as the good old Ottoman Empire. It's actually surprising to even myself. It's been about 2 years since we last played the Ottoman Empire. Last time we played it was when we did like the National Populist like Trap Path. Back in like March of 2021. Like we've done a few runs as Turkey, which is like the post-defeat Ottoman Empire. But we haven't actually, I don't think, played... 2 years is wild to me that it's been that long since we played the Ottomans. Like to me, even still, like that sounds wrong. But I mean, I looked back, unless I called it like the Ottoman Empire, like Ottomans. No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it goes back to March of 2021. That's wild to me. Anyways, we're gonna be playing the Ottoman Empire today, and of course, my goal is to beat the Egypt. We'll beat, Iran, Persia, the Arab states, all of them, basically. And what I want to be doing is I want to be joining up with Germany, and I want to be going towards the Russian Empire to kind of secure our position in the Caucasus if we can do that. But I think joining the Reichspakt would be fun for us. So, national focus, we'll be going for expanded education ministry. It's really the only one we actually have access to. And I will say, like, right off the bat, I don't have a set path. Like, I don't really have a set way for this campaign to actually go. So, yeah, that's basically it. I don't have an actual pathway to victory here. So, 2 convoys. Give me a single... Did they change these symbols? Like, the boats look different. Or maybe that's just for the Ottoman Empire. I just haven't played the Ottomans in so long. Can I get my Navy experience, please? So I can build this submarine. It's probably just because I haven't played them in so long. There we go. Save that up. We'll build... Do I like really not have any better ships than this? It's kind of sad. In a war, transport plane, medium airframe. Right now we have small airframe. Give me 3 factories on close air support. And we'll throw the next factory just in rough production. Sounds good to me. We currently have an army size of... 31. I think we have a few more over here. 32. Got some units in North Africa. We're basically just going to ban North Africa. I'm not too worried about this area. If it collapses, it collapses. Not a huge deal to me. I'm going to split you up into several smaller armies. Army Group 1 is going to be on the border with Bulgaria. For when Bulgaria and Serbia go to war with each other, there's a chance we'll be able to grab these 2 states. If we're lucky. The 17 stack, we're basically just going to keep them around Aleppo. Use them to mostly target against the Egyptians. And Brown Army, your main job is to fight against the Persians. Sounds great to me. Throw you all underneath one single field marshal. Let's go with, let's go with Mustafa Fethi Pasha. And for our 3 generals, we will go with Omar Pasha. We will go for Abdurrahman Pasha. And for our final general, we'll go with Semilaketa Pasha. Fantastic. Anything else we really care about so much? Let's send a military mission. Send them. How many guns do we actually have? Literally 0. Let's send to Jamoshamir. They're gonna be our main help here. Yemen's almost certainly gonna rebel. Muscat's probably not gonna be a great ally for us. I don't actually know if Muscat can actually join us. And this other stuff we don't care about too much. Okay, fantastic. Currently, we're at 31 factories. We are 9, 3, and 19. I think that's actually a pretty decent ratio. Let's just go with 1 military factory currently in Constantinople. How many trains do we have? 22. I'll do 15 trains for 5% stability. Seems fine for now. And I think aside from that, don't send military missions to Muscat or Yemen. And we're basically good to go. Our stability is at 48%. We have no war support whatsoever. There is like a whole unique Ottoman mechanic when it comes to our states. Because you see right here, this state has no unrest. Very, very low. So it causes negative 0% stability. That's fantastic. But if you look like, let's say, further down near Damascus, it's low. So it's a negative 1% stability. I'm sure some of these areas are... Maybe I guess we're still pretty early on. Maybe no one's up by... Okay, we got mediums over here. And a medium, it is a negative 2% stability. So all those kind of add up. We're currently getting a negative 32% stability based on stability of the realm. Hopefully we can fix it, but probably won't really be able to. It's kind of hard as the Ottomans to... It's kind of hard as the Ottomans to even have like a stable nation, which I guess isn't like a huge surprise. The Ottoman Empire before the Weltkrieg. The Ottoman Empire, once one of the greatest empires in history, saw its decline commence in the late 18th century, developing to a point of being known as the stickman of Europe by the 20th century. An inability to effectively industrialize, constant foreign meddling in its affairs, and a troubling hold on a lot of the provinces meant that the Ottoman Sultanate had fallen back well behind the European powers by 1876. Nonetheless, the Ottomans reformed, and despite the challenging they posed on a local level, where trouble issues and corrupt bureaucracy reigned supreme, light could be seen. Probably by Mehmed II in the early 19th century and further pursued by the young Ottomans, radical change were introduced in the empire. Land ownership was restructured, the janissaries eradicated, central rule re-established in regions such as Mosul and El-Hassa, and the constitution proclamated. The focus on these reformers was based on the idea of Ottomanism and attempted to foster a common identity for all its inhabitants besides their local one. It would not be enough. With Ahmed II's rise to power, a change would come once more. Under the pretext of the Russo-Turkish War, the constitution was abolished and parliament sent packing. This period saw a radical centralization of power under the figure of Sultan Caliph. With a constant threat by Christian powers, the Sultan turned towards pan-Islamism based on the prestige of the Caliphate. Despite enjoying great success from the Muslim population, this only hastened the departure of territories without ease. Furthermore, with his absolute rule, fostered great discontent amongst the population, but increasingly became familiar with Western ideas. This resistance would consolidate itself in the shape of the Committee of Union and Progress. A coup d'etat in 1908 made Ottoman politics, long suppressed by the Sultan, burst into the open. Dozens of parties would attempt to find a seat within the newly restored parliament, as it seemed the Ottoman decline quickly saw a split between the centralist and the centralist. Though a tumultuous 5 years, these two sides would battle for control. In 1913, with the raid on Sublime Porte, the game was up. The centralists, with the significant public figures of the three pashas, would eradicate all remaining power of the centralists and save the nation in their image. Under great threat by the imperialists, they ultimately strengthened their ties with Germany. Okay, so this is going to be a long intro, so you can just skip past it if you're not really interested into the lore bit. The Ottomans during the Weltkrieg. The Ottoman Empire officially entered the Weltkrieg on October 29, 1914, with the arrival of Wilhelm Schulken with the Gobin and Breslau in the Schelling Odessa. The Ottomans won several significant victories in the early years of the war, such as the Battle of Gallipoli and the Siege of Kut. But there were setbacks as well, such as the disastrous Caucasus campaign against the Russians. Disaster continued in 1916 with the start of the air revolt, combined with a new British offensive under the command of General Edmund Allenby, coming to the head in 1918. Devastating defeats in Palestine led to a mass retreat of Ottoman forces. Jerusalem, Damascus, and Aleppo quickly fell in succession, as only the controversial decision by the commander of the Sixth Army to withdraw into the mountains of Anatolia was able to stop the chain reaction. A valiant defeat at Antioch and a pure victory near Maras ultimately stopped Allenby in his tracks. At this point, the atmosphere of the empire was rapidly changing, as the Ottoman government realized that even victory would come at a cost. Furthermore, a change had happened in the palace as well. The CUP puppet Mehmed V had passed away, and in his wake, far more assertive Vedidin. Seeing the collapse of the empire on all fronts, and with the CUP government held responsible for the disaster, he would lash out an attempt to shift powers to his allies in the HIF. With the grounds heating up under their feet, Tala Pasha would then, at the instigation of Jimmy Pasha, attempt to shut down the Sultan. Harsh famine in Constantinople due to refusal by German forces to supply it with Ukrainian grain, betrayal in the Caucasus by its allies, and attempted silencing the Sultan, and rumors that the commander of the Sixth Army was in open conflict with the Ministry of War would finally tip the bucket over. In a massive wave of anti-German and pacifist fervor, the cabinet of Tala Pasha was forced to resign and concede to the Sultan. Ahmet Tevfik Pasha was appointed by the Grand Vizier and was tasked with the creation of the government of national unity. Under pressure from the CUP, whose unwillingness to lift their grasp on power made the negotiations collapse. Ahmet Tevfik Pasha resigned and was replaced by Ahmet Ijit Pasha, creating a government consisting of Kevin Bey, Fethi Pasha, and Ruf Pasha. It was quickly clear that the CUP was far from defeated. Oh, there's gonna be this is it's event heavy today. Okay, part 2 out of 2 for during the Weltkrieg. We still got after the Weltkrieg to deal with as well. The fall of Greece and the growing risk of revolution in the British protectorate in Egypt caused Alban to revise his strategy and to draw part of his forces. As France collapsed in late 1919, the war entered its closing stages. In contrast with the Western Front, however, where Austrian forces pushing Italy and Germany into France and Belgium, the Ottomans at this vital moment had lost over half their empire, either occupied or readily vulnerable to a concentrated British attack, and were held up by British force unlikely to stand down. Sultan Vedidin opened negotiations with the British in an attempt to salvage what remained of the empire, while Britain reconsidered his attitude in the Middle East. With the Treaty of Copenhagen ceasefire later this year, demanding immediate withdrawal of all remaining on-time forces from territory of the Central Powers, a rapid solution for the Eastern question was necessary. Further trouble for the British in Egypt, Afghanistan, and now occupied Iraq ultimately forced their hand, and the order was given to withdraw. Only Palestine and the Vilayet al-Basra remained under occupation at the instance of Jan Smuts and Leon Emery until an acceptable treaty was reached surrounding the rights of its minorities, masking their intentions as an Indian base in Iraq and a fortified position near Suez. With uncertainty in the political climate of the Ottoman Empire and punishment for the perpetrators of the Armenian massacres far from likely, international opinion shifted away from the empire, losing much of its support from the Central Powers. An accord was reached in summer 1920, whereas 2 autonomous regions were established, but to the great anger of both Turks and Arabs. The Musrite of Jerusalem, the MOJ, was created in Palestine, stretching from the Albany lines to the Red Sea. This de jure part of the Ottoman Empire was governed by the International Council, consisting of German Empire, the British Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the United States, and the Ottomans themselves. Forbidding the entry of Ottoman troops, the International Germandre force was to maintain peace in Palestine. In the Vilayet al-Basra, a new home was created for the Assyrian people, whose exodus from the plains of Nivea and Lake Urma had left them as refugees in Iran, openly hostile towards their ambitions. As foreign peace finally arrived in 1919, the borders of the Ottoman Empire largely remained the same. The oblasts of Kars and Adra were recovered in addition to Yevrin, whilst in the Aegean, the Italians were pushed out of the Damocles. Damage has been immense, however, through the action of the CEP, especially Jemet Pasha, and tension between the Turks and Arabs would burst into the open, whilst Eastern Anatolia and Mount Lebanon, whole population were eradicated either through forced deportations or starvations. Loss on the Turkish side had been colossal as well, leading to underpopulation and sharp decline of agricultural output, the empire's main source of income. Although the Arab revolt had been a colossal failure, the need for reform was recognized. Answering to the Arab Congress in 1913, the Arabic language recognized as the second language of the empire. Increasing factionalism within the CUP and the meteoric rise of many military figures tore away at the internal stability of the party. The betrayal of its German allies in Palestine gave rise to a substantial anti-German faction, and as public opinion of the party declined even further, the CUP was forced to name Tetuit and openly oust some of the dictatorial figures within. Jemet Pasha went packing, while Talat's influence was greatly reduced. Working from his position as Minister of War, Mustafa Kemal Pasha ousted the German military mission and commenced an ambitious military restructuring. Receiving great acclaim for his actions, Kemal continued laying the foundations for his rise to power. Fearing another Enver Pasha, the upper committee of the party pushed Bey forward as his leader. Incapable of successfully challenging him, Kemal made a lucky bid for power in 1925, and the party would change its name for the second time to the Ottoman People's Party. Look, we're almost done, okay? We're almost done. The 1926 election ended in the victory of the OHF. But many were quick to remark that it was less due to the party itself and more due to the fragmentation of the opposition, where more than a dozen parties fought for any given seat. The newly appointed Grand Vizier did not hide his ambitions, and in a flurry of reforms, he pushed the nation towards his ideals. Massive strides were undertaken in areas of education, economic recovery, and the fight against religious establishment. The authoritarian style of the Grand Vizier, however, led to further splintering of the party, when his former ally and friend, Kazim Karabekir Pasha, broke with the party and created his Democratic Party. Under threat of rapid centralization of the government apparatus, and with many conservatives afraid that the OHF may be attempting to break with tradition, the 1931 election ended the first electoral defeat of the OHF. The Ottoman Party for Administration Decentralization, under its leader Haki el-Azim, became the grand winner of the elections, and formed the coalition with the HIF and the DF to try to unite a front against the growing centralist threat. The coalition, however, was under constant attack, as the various parties that played a part in it had conflicting opinions on the non-OHF policy. Tensions reached a breaking point in late 1932, when the government of Haki el-Azim collapsed due to disagreements with the HIF and the DF. A new government was created under the HIF leadership, with the minority government failing to achieve its goals of decentralization and liberalization. The continued failures of the coalition went a long way in repairing the reputation of the OHF, which received a solid majority in the 1935 election, as Grand Vizier Mustafa Kemal Pasha begins his second term of office. Signs had started to appear that he may be looking for an alternative to the constant observation of the Ottoman chambers of deputies, and interference from the conservative lobby through the Caliph. So that's like 5 minutes of reading. That's okay. We'll get all of our units in position. And the Ottoman economy, look, it's going to be all reading in this episode, okay? The Ottoman economy in 1936, aftermath of the infamous decade. When the dust settled in 1920 and there finally came to an end to an almost decade of non-stop war, the economy of the Ottoman Empire laid in tatters. The manufacturing economy would have been slow but steady growth in the CEP era was knocking down as the effects of the Armenian massacre took their toll on the educated middle classes. Doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, etc. all became critical jobs as the continuing exodus by Greek Ottoman citizens in Asia Minor showed how devastating the national economy plan was for the ravaged nation. In a similar way, the agricultural sector was ruined as the real effect of the war started to sink in. The loss of the Anatolian Turkish population was mind-boggling, and almost 25% of the pre-war population was gone, leaving behind an abundance of land without the manpower to work it. Nonetheless, the Sublime Porte did not sit idle, and plans for a swift recovery were quickly drafted, as the first post-war cabinet made their numbers one priority. Railroads left behind by investors of nations no longer existing were nationalized, the dreaded OPDA was completely shut down, and its monopolies transferred over to the state. The national economy program became the number one priority of the Ottoman government, but the horrors of the war and the reliance of the untrustworthy non-Turkish population left deep scars among the ruling elite. The Muslim bourgeoisie had to be groomed to challenge the traditional Christian dominance, and the people educated, and the empire finally launched itself into the 20th century. An era of growth. As the years ticked by and the economy reached its pre-war state by the late 1920s, the then ruling OHF took development to a new level. Consequently, the 4-year plan was laid on the table, and the hold on the government and the economy was tightened even further. Then in 1931, the unthinkable happened, as the Nationalist coalition was decisively brought down by the Liberal Entente, who reopened the economy to foreign investment and toned down the statist measures, so carefully crafted in the decade before. Nonetheless, the economy kept expanding as industries popped up across Anatolia and the Levant, financed by almost never-ending wave of economic prosperity in the German Empire and low import costs for machinery and building materials. By the middle of the 30s, the Turkish economy had never seen better days, as the feeling of foreign progress could be felt from Beirut to Samarra. Nonetheless, many point out the warning signs on the horizon as the increasingly instability on the continent, and the stagnation of the German economy is likely to bring issues to the Grand Orient as well. Yeah, no, I'm sure Germany is completely fine. Nothing bad is going to happen to the German economy. We're not even, like, I think we're 17 minutes in and we're not even halfway done. We're not even halfway done a single month. Education bait in the Modifier 1 Mebsan. The fight over the minds and spirits of the population has been vigorously fought over the last few decades, as the unrelenting pace of modernization has also greatly affected this field. Started deep in the 19th century, the reforms have steadily progressed over the years, mostly carried by the secularist movement. The OHF have continued this conflict post-Weltkrieg with one of the participation of women in higher education and the official full co-education only a few years later. Promoted by Sultan Vedetin, nonetheless, the policy of finding it hard to be fully implemented on the ground is heavy opposition to conservative Ulema, and a continued split of various education systems make any centralization hard to accomplish. The Ottoman education system, consisting of 3 main branches, remains divided, and even though the Edili and Sultani, the reformer schools established by the Tanzimat reforms, have been united into one distinct curriculum, the Medres, religious education, and the minority schools remain a thorn in the side of the Ministry of National Education. A long staple of the OHF, it has been detailed as plans to unite all 3 systems, place them directly under the ministry, and to streamline the curricula to both promote social cohesion and to make it more approachable for the common citizen. Over the last few years, primarily during his first tenure in 1927, massive strides were made towards the accomplishment of this goal, but the subsequent decentralization government in 1931 had overturned this policy once more in favor of education at the Vilayet level, as such causing a divide in both the quality and accessibility of education, depending on the efforts of the Wali. Now that the OHF is firmly back in the saddle, it has brought to the table the sum of its designs, the Co-Education Unification Act. Finally put into law the full unification of education of the entire realm, and forced co-education of male and female, the party has found itself up against a wall of conservative forces funded by the powerful Sufi lodges in an attempt to prevent their power over the government to fade. Okay. So we got our Vilayets here. Expand our operations. That sounds good. We'll take that one. Increase the Ottoman Mandre. Resistance targets go down a lot of places. I mean, that would be nice. Do we have a integration of the Greeks at 40%? Thing is, there's gonna be a lot of people upset with us very soon. Our stability is going to completely tank, and I don't really know there's anything we can really do to stop that. Do I have troops? I can build some units. Give me 3 cavalry divisions. Sounds great. We'll build some basic infantry. Give me like 10 of those bad boys. And you know what? Give me, let's say, 3 tanks. I don't know if we actually produce any tanks. You want light tanks, right? Yeah, give me some basic light tanks. Let's start a construction. Let's at least have like 1 factory in those for now. And Medras fight back against the OHF. A petition signed by 300 ulama across the empire have reached the desk of the Grand Vizier earlier this week as the nearing a vote on the Co-Education Unification Act is stirring commotion throughout the nation. Nonetheless, there's no united opposition to the act, as even within the ulama themselves, many have seen the benefits of centralized education, with some even openly expressing their support for the act. Well, now that we're done January, we're 1 month into the campaign. I think this is going to be a good time for us to end off for now. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, give me a thumbs up. Now do a quick thumbs down. You want to see more, subscribe, and goodbye.